The average man lasts about 5 to 7 minutes before he ejaculates. The average woman took 25 to 30 minutes to reach orgasm.
Kevin Anthony is a certified sexologist, tantra counselor, NLP practitioner, and the sex, love, and relationship coach. For over 10 years, he has worked with men, women, and couples to help them have the relationship of their dreams and the best sex of their lives. He's the host of the Love Lab podcast, creator of the popular YouTube channel, Kevin Anthony Coaching, and the co-creator of the online course series, Power in Mastery, which is a complete men's sexual mastery training to develop a man's stamina, boost his confidence, and enhance his sexual abilities.
Premature ejaculation is ejaculating any time sooner than you wanted to. You can learn to control it. I decide when I want to ejaculate. You've got this building of sexual energy. You don't know how to move it through your body. It explodes out in an ejaculation. It is the act of making love. It is not the race to orgasm.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode on The Lounge. I'm so thrilled to bring up a new friend of mine, Kevin Anthony, to the show. We're going to have the best time today. We are going to talk about something that is a common thing that comes up, which is how to last longer as a man, how to work with erectile dysfunction, what is normal in this, situation, and so much more. So I wanted to bring Kevin up because, like you heard in the intro, he's a real expert in this topic. So thank you so much for being here with me today, Kevin.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, same. Let's dive right in. And one thing that comes up a lot that I hear is just the conversation. And I think this even goes beyond like sex in general. It's like this question in health of what is normal. And so when it comes to what we're going to talk about today as like kind of the prime topic around how to last longer as a man, I think one of the first questions is like, well, what is normal? Like what, if man's trying to last longer, trying to evaluate, like, should he put effort into this? How does he know if he's on track, if he's not? What's normal here?
Well, that is a really great question. And, we always sort of have to preface this by saying that when we say normal means what are most people doing, right? So when it comes to how long does a man last, how long do most men last? Now, as you'll find out as we get deeper into this topic, what is normal for most men is not my definition of normal. So we'll get into that. But so they've done a bunch of studies on this over the years. And they've all come up with slightly different numbers. But basically, the average man lasts about 5 to 7 minutes before he ejaculates. Now, to me, when I hear that number, of course, I think, wow, that is unbelievably short. It's like you haven't even warmed up yet and it's over, right? And as a woman, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But so 5 to 7 minutes, it sounds short to begin with. But when you put it in context, right? And the context is this. Those same studies determined that the average woman took 25 to 30 minutes to reach orgasm. And in my own personal experience, it can take even longer than that for many women, right? So 5 to 7 minutes, it's like you're not even a third of the way towards getting her to a place where she's even possibly going to orgasm, right? And so then men wonder why she's not into sex. Oh, no, she never wants to have sex. I don't really understand. She's never in the mood. To which I say all the time, well, I'm sorry, guys, but if she doesn't want to have sex with you, it's probably, there can be other causes, but it's probably because she's not getting the kind of sex that she likes. Like, what's in it for her? Right? She doesn't even get warmed up yet and it's over. And it's like, why did I even bother?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I love how you're starting this. I answer so similarly when I get asked this question around like, what is the difference between common and normal? And I think oftentimes we just, because something is so common, we just say, well, this is normal. And, how you're differentiating this around like, okay, well, this is what's happening with most people, but this doesn't mean that this is actually normal. The body is so much more capable than this. And you're absolutely right. I mean, it's so common that this concept of orgasm gap comes up around, okay, well, most commonly he's lasting nowhere close to how long she's lasting. And that is like such a conflict between couples and oftentimes like shuts down sex and intimacy. So if somebody is listening to this and it's like, okay, so now I know that this is common, that it's 5 to 7 minutes, but I'm much more like capable of this. How does somebody really even begin to do the process of reprogramming and, reprogramming their ejaculatory function, especially in regards to the mind, right? Because I think there's such a psychological, like neurological, like, well, this is just what I do. This is what I'm capable of. So I know we have like the physical part that has to be kind of retrained, and you have practices for that. So if you can touch on that, but also touch a little bit on, if you would, like, how do we actually then like help the mind to believe that if this has only lasted for 5 to 7 minutes every time, that the body is actually capable of longer, that we don't self-sabotage with, some of our thoughts.
Yeah. So the very first part when it comes to how do I last longer is exactly that. It's changing mindset, right? You have to actually realize that this is possible, right? And it's not just like, if we talk about the size of, the male penis, right? There's like most men are an average size, but there's a couple of outliers that are gigantic, right? That's not what we're talking about here, right? When we're talking about you being able to last longer than 10 minutes, we're not talking about trying to get you to be the outlier. This is something that everybody can achieve. Everybody's body is capable of it as long as you know how. The problem is nobody ever told you that it was possible, and nobody ever showed you how to do it. So you're just operating on this default mode, right, that you learned very early on. This is a great segue into how did we get to 5 to 7 minutes? Like, why is it 5 to 7 minutes? Well,
Great
because
person.
how do most men, learn about sexuality, and how do they orgasm for the first time? How do they ejaculate for the first time? Well, usually when they're young, they discover, touching their penis feels good, and they start masturbating. Well, generally that has been frowned upon by parents and societies. And so what are they doing? Hiding in the bathroom, right? The only place a young boy or young man can get 5 minutes apiece, but don't stay in there too long. Somebody might come knocking on the door, right? So
Yep. I see how
hurry up.
that
Hurry up. And then it gets exacerbated as you get older and porn comes into the equation, because, how do most men use porn? Well, they spend 15 to 20 minutes looking for the clip that's going to be the thing that does it for them that day. And once they find it, it's off to the races. And 5 minutes later, they ejaculate and they're out, right? So
Yep.
they're physically training their bodies. And because of that, they don't have a concept in their mind that there is something else. So step one, of course, is to know that you can last longer. And this is also a great time to give you my definition of premature ejaculation.
Please. I would love to hear it.
My definition of premature ejaculation is ejaculating any time sooner than you wanted to. So if we're setting new goals here, right? Like we're trying to change our mind here. We want to create some new goals. Is the goal, well, I need to make it to 20 to 30 minutes because that's what the studies say. That's how long it takes a woman to orgasm. Or do I maybe want to reach a little bit further than that and say, hey, I'm going to set my goal at I actually have control and I decide when I want to ejaculate. And I could decide to do it in 5 minutes, or I could decide to do it in 3 hours or anywhere in between. Right. And so that's ultimately the goal that you want to get to. And you just need to know that it is possible. There are people that can do it. I can do it. I've been doing it for a long time. I didn't always know how to do it. I had to learn it just like everybody else. And I have taught many other men how to do it as well. So that's step one, is to really focus on this idea that it is possible, that you can learn to control it. You can choose when you want to ejaculate. And then from there, we can go on, all right, how do we physically train for this?
And it's such a good definition, because I think it's really important to not set a time-oriented goal and a just like control-oriented goal of having mastered this so much that, yeah, you decide when, you decide the moment, and having it shows, I guess is the point, is it shows just an extreme mastery over one's own body to be able to control to that level. And, in thinking about like some of the causes, right? So if we're saying, okay, premature ejaculation as defined by you is ejaculating sooner than you intentionally, want to. So if we're defining it that way, and we're saying, well, one reason for this is that childhood time where we're rushed in the bathroom, men are rushed, boys are rushed, and they are masturbating quickly. Mom, dad don't know about it. Brothers, sisters don't know about it, so they can get on with their day. Are there any other big causes that kind of lead to that quickening of that ejaculation that you see come up in your work?
Yeah, another big one that I see, and this one gets a little bit more esoteric, but it really is mastery of moving energy in your body. So there's a couple different ways that we can look at that, depending on which system we're looking at. But for instance, if we were looking at the chakra system, I don't want to get too esoteric. I don't know how woo-woo your audience is, but
We're all over the place.
okay.
Some will know the chakra system, other people will not.
So the chakra system basically are energy centers throughout the body. There's 7 of them in the body, according to the chakra system. There's more above the body. That's the whole other topic. But the point is that, your first chakra, which is generally considered your first or your second, depending on which system, generally considered to be the center of your sexual energy. And that's basically where your genitals are located. So the problem is that you've got this building of sexual energy, right? And everybody knows what that feels like. If we want to talk to men specifically, you've heard the term blue balls. It's like, oh my God, you got to finish me because I got blue balls. First of all, there is no such thing as blue balls. There's no medical thing called blue balls where your balls are going to turn blue or anything. What happens is you just get a buildup of sexual energy and you don't know how to move it through your body. Right. And so from the perspective of the chakra system, it's like all that energy just gets stuck in one place. And it has to go somewhere eventually, right? And it explodes out in an ejaculation. So if you can learn to master moving the energy through your body, right, then you can move it up away from your genitals. So there isn't so much stimulation down there. Now, what's interesting when it comes to chakras, just as a slight aside, modern science has realized, they've mapped clusters of nerve density. They found that in the same places these ancient systems talked about energy centers and things like chakras, there is an increased concentration of nerves. So you got a whole bunch of nerves sensing things down there and this massive buildup of energy, and you don't know how to control it or move it. So one of the keys, aside from the physical retraining of your body, is also learning how to move that energy through your body so it's not all concentrating in your genitals. There are, of course, some other things as well. Remember that sex is a co-creation. There are 2 people involved here. And there are things that she can potentially do to help as well. So when we're talking about premature ejaculation, if I'm working with a man trying to help him solve this, we spend the overwhelming majority of our time working with what can you do to retrain your mind, retrain your body. However, once we've got most of that out of the way, then we have to shift focus a little bit and go, okay, now there are some things that your partner is potentially doing that is contributing to this situation, right? So a couple of those things are, we're talking about energy just now. Well, I'm sure a lot of men listening to this, if when I say it, they'll go, oh yeah, I get it. I felt that before, but I didn't know what to call it. There is an idea, well, it's more than just an idea, it's a reality, that a woman's energy can pull on you. You feel her energy literally pulling your energy into her. And so, a woman who is more trained, more experienced, who's aware of that energy, she can learn to control that. And so therefore, when she knows you're getting close, she can relax that energy a little bit. And then, if she wants to get you more excited or bring you closer, or if she wants to simultaneously orgasm with you, she can pull harder on it.
Just a quick pause to say thank you to our sponsor, MyLibidoDoc. MyLibidoDoc is on a mission, and this mission is based in part on a Harvard study that looked at longevity and happiness, and looked at genetics, looked at diet, lifestyle, exercise, and so many more variables. And out of all the variables they looked at, this study found that the number one thing that made a difference in our quality of our life, as well as our longevity, was our relationships. And in addition to this, we see that one of the top 5 reasons why people get divorced or break up is due to lack of intimacy. MyLibidoDoc, our sponsor, is on a mission to improve 1 million relationships. And we do that through your help, through your support, through subscription, and through spreading the word and checking out our Libido Club, where MyLibidoDoc works to help couples have the step-by-step guidance and help from experts around the world to improve their relationships, their communication, their intimacy, their sex, their capacity to perform as amazing lovers, and so much more. Now back to our show.
One of the problems is that a lot of women are not even conscious that they have this ability. And so they're just pulling all the time. There's a great example. This goes way, way back. This is like 20 years-ish probably. I felt like I was pretty accomplished. I was like, I got this mastered, This is long before I was doing this work too. And I was with this new partner and I was like, oh yeah, all right. And then the first time we had sex, I ejaculated way too early. And I was like, what just happened? I'm like, I'm so good at this. Like, how did that happen? And, I was really thinking about it. And at one point, I sat down and had a conversation with her, which is something that, we'll talk about too. And as we talked about it, one of the things she said to me was, yeah, well, you know what? It's okay. Every partner I've ever had has been the same way. And like this light bulb went off in my head and I went, that's it. I get it now. That was the first time that light bulb really went off. I go, oh, okay. I know what's happening. Here, work with me. Try this. Yeah. And as soon as she tried that, things shifted, right? So that's just one small example of how what she's doing can potentially influence it. I got one more, which is this. We talked about this cycle of how, men are only lasting 5 to 7 minutes. It's taking her 20 to 30 minutes. So what have most women learned from that experience, right? What they've learned is if they can even get remotely close to an orgasm, they are going for it. They're like, no, you can't stop. Don't slow down. You've got to get me there. Why is she doing that? Because she knows if she doesn't, that's it. He's gone and she never gets to her orgasm. So that has trained a lot of women to really rush towards their orgasm. And generally, they're rushing towards a clitoral orgasm because that's the easiest to access for most of them. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, what they're doing is using a vibrator while they're having sex because that will get them there faster. Mm-hmm. The problem is the higher their energy gets, right, the closer to their orgasm they get. She's just pulling him right along with him. And if he's not trained and he can't hold it, boom, there he goes. And she's like, I was so close.
Yeah, many people are going to relate to this story.
Yeah. So for her, the goal is, and now, of course, this is a give and take, right? And it does require skill on his part too. But the goal for her is to relax, to be patient, to work with him. Remember, co-creation, this thing we call lovemaking. When you feel him getting too close, I don't care if you're really close to your orgasm. Just back it down a little bit, right? Allow his energy level or his arousal on the arousal scale, which we haven't talked about yet, to come back down into his sweet spot where he can control himself again. And if you do that enough times, he'll be able to last long enough and eventually get you there. But if you get impatient and want to just charge right to it, you're probably going to take him over the edge.
So question about that for you, because I do work with a lot of women on this relaxing component and help couples as well. And one of the things that I have found, and I want to understand if you're talking about relaxing the way I talk about relaxing, we're talking about the same things here. So oftentimes when I'm teaching stuff like this, I'm actually teaching women how to relax the muscles of their pelvic floor. So there's less tightness in their vaginal pull on the penis. And is that what you're talking about when you're saying relaxing? Or like, do you teach it from like, oh, relax the whole body? Or like, what does relaxing like for a woman in the situation who's like, okay, I'm going to try this? Like, what does that word relaxing look like at that moment for women?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a relaxing of the vaginal muscles, but there's more to it than that. Because what's happening is her energy level is getting really high. Her breathing is starting to increase, right? Like everything is getting more intense. And so when I say relaxing, I'm really talking about just backing all of that down a couple of notches. Slow your breathing down, right? Maybe relax the vaginal muscles. Just slow the intensity of the situation down a little bit because he's feeling every bit of that from you, which, by the way, is amazing. It's one of the things that I think is just unbelievable about sex is the fact that when you, as a woman, get really high in your sexual arousal and energy, I always use the example. I say it's like sticking your penis in an electrical socket. You're just like, it can be super powerful. And that's one of the things that's really amazing about it. But at the wrong moments, it can very easily just push you right over. So it's really backing down the whole intensity of it, letting him sort of regroup, catch himself again, bring his arousal down, and then you can start to build up again.
So another question I have with that is like, so for many women, there's this thing of like, okay, what can help them like build and also not go over the hill, as some of my clients like to talk about orgasm, is kind of same, same, same. So keep doing the same, 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 same thing, and then different for a moment. And sometimes that different will prevent going over that hill, having that orgasm, and bring them down a notch. But there's this thing sometimes for many women, and I know many women listeners will relate to this, where, okay, well, you relax too much, you bring it down too much. And if orgasm's a 10 and not turned on to 0, and we kind of ride the sweet spot of like 7, 8, right, of like keeping it in this kind of like heightened zone. But for many women, if they relax too much, then it can take them down where like they almost like they're starting their build at the beginning. And, that's not necessarily bad, right? That's like, okay, well, this is how we make love for longer too. And this is, there's its own version of that. But I know women can get really frustrated when it's like, okay, you relax too much and now you're basically building from the beginning. So do you work with like how much? I know I'm getting really granular here, but do you work with like how much women need to relax and how to help them like relax enough where they're lowering the threshold of excitation for the man, but then also at the same time not lowering their threshold so much that they're starting to have to build from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a really good point that you bring up. You're not supposed to just go cold fish,
Right.
right? That's not the goal here. The goal is to just back it down enough that he's able to recover. So you're going to have to get used to your man and what that level is. So I can't tell you, if it's on a scale of 1 to 10, you always got to go to a 5 or a 4 or whatever it is. Figure out what he needs. And it's actually going to vary in the moment for him too. Some days he's going to need you to back it down a little bit more because he's really struggling to maintain control. And other days he just needs you to back it down a little bit, like one notch down. And he's like, okay, got this. All right, let's go. Right. So you got to kind of figure that out. And yes, you do want to stay in your sweet spot, right? So that you're maintaining your arousal and your desire throughout. But you may have to work with them. And also, it's not just an up and then down, right? It's waves. It's waves. Waves of intensity up and waves of intensity down. And this is, again, the beauty of what sex can be when both of you have mastered this and you learn how to ride the waves. You can ride them for as long as you want. And you can start to get to places where, yes, you're riding waves up and down, but the waves keep getting more and more and more intense, but you're still in control as they go. And this is the whole idea of what we would call tantric sex, which is that there is no destination. You're not trying to rush towards an orgasm if you're a woman, or an ejaculation / orgasm if you're a man. By the way, men, those are two different things that tend to happen at the same time. We can talk about that too if we want. You can learn to separate them. But that's what we're talking about. It is the act of making love. It is not the race to orgasm.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I know we're out of time for this episode, but I think in our next episode, which Everybody, make sure you go to the link below this video to access episode number 2. But I do think in the next episode, let's talk a little bit about the orgasm versus ejaculation component and separating that. And then we're also going to talk about in the next episode how to talk to your partner about ejaculatory imbalances, as we want to call them, or just how to last longer. And, I want to make sure we cover in this, if you're a woman, how to talk about this to your man without bringing shame, these sorts of things, and vice versa, just bi-directionally, how to chat about this in a way that's constructive and kind and loving and is not going to create a psychological challenge on top of it. Before we do that, though, before we wrap up and get everybody over to part 2, which again is below the video here, everybody, how can people find you? I want to make sure that people know about your vault, where you have a ton of free resources. You just gave us a ton of information. I know you have tons more free giveaways. So can you please talk a little bit about that for everybody?
Sure. The best way to find me and my work is to go to kevinanthonycoaching.com. And specifically, if you go to kevinanthonycoaching.com/vault, you can find my free library of resources. It is basically a library, and it's got PDFs, it's got blog articles, it's got videos, all things around helping you have the relationship of your dreams and the best sex of your life. And there are resources in there about sexual mastery as well.
Amazing. And we will have all those links in the show notes for you guys. So thank you so much, Kevin, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of The Lounge. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you for listening to the Libido Lounge. Please don't keep me a secret. Please share this with your friends. You can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, as well as how to work with me at MyLibidoDoc.com.